Okay, so a very good day, everyone, and warmly welcome to Hacking Your Performance series of your entrepreneur firm. And my name is Louisa, and I can't be more humbled and honored to be serving as your host for today's event. But first of all, I would like to deliver my affectionate as well as my warm greetings to all of you here for your taking time out of your busy schedule and chose for tonight's event. And this is our welcome to your entrepreneur firm as well as hosted at Zoom applications and Facebook. So ladies and gentlemen, following the great success of the last event, Young Entrepreneur Firm has successfully delivered talks and imparted across Asian countries, Asia, as well as Europe too. And today we'll meet Ms. Ann, an international expert that has spent her 10 years experience a senior HR executive at Google, and she set up her consulting practice since 2015 to support founders in building high-performing and positive organizations. So, and everyone, please welcome Ms. Ann to have an awesome discussion with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. What a lovely introduction. All right, so I'm here today to speak about how to grow a startup, and most importantly, how to scale it from 0 to 1,000, speaking in terms of employees. So I believe we have mostly entrepreneurs and founders around here. There is a common belief that to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have a great idea. We all have heard that, and we all think that, oh yeah, I have this great idea, it's going to be working, I just need to implement it. But the truth is that a great idea is merely enough. You need more than that. And the truth is that 90% of the startups fail. And looking at the reasons why these startups are failing, you can see that all these reasons are actually correlated to a human or a leadership failure. Because at the end of the day, if your market entry strategy, your go-to-market strategy, your financial strategy, your HR strategy, all these are listed here, it's basically because you didn't have the right people to develop those strategies. The strategies are only as good as the people developing them. And so behind every success, there are people. And to be a successful startup, you need to have talented people at every level of the organization. Basically, in order to ensure that your business plan is not just a piece of paper that looks good and where you have a nice projected bottom line, you actually need people. You need to hire the right people in the right roles at the right time in order to execute the business plan. So just to simplify, in order to scale a startup, you need four things. You need to have a product or a service that people are willing to buy, are interested in. You need to find a way to generate some revenues and find a path to profitability. You obviously need also sufficient investment in order to grow fast enough and to enter new markets, develop new products. And you need an organization, you need people. But the reality is that most founders only focus on the first three, and they do not spend enough time thinking about the organization, let alone doing anything about it. And as a consequence, what happens is that gradually the business needs are getting much bigger than what the organization can actually deliver. So we have a lag, a gap between the organization and the business needs. It means that you have more to do in order to develop, to execute the business plan, but what people or skills that you have in your organization can actually do. So that's actually okay as long as you're growing at a reasonable scale. So very early stage, typically, if you need to increase your online presence, you might ask Mary or John in the team whether they can spend some time to do some online marketing outreach, and that might make the deal. Or worst case scenario, you get an intern, and that's working. Now, when you're in hyper growth stage, it's quite a different thing, because all of a sudden, it's not about just having one post here and there on social medias. You actually need a full marketing strategy, and so you need a full marketing team. And that's just about speaking about marketing. You also need to hire a lot of tech people, a lot of sales people, a lot of HR people, legal people, etc. And so hiring is a big problem, but it's only the beginning of things, because all things are going to happen at the same time. You need to hire a lot of people very fast in order to execute your business plan. In order to do that, you need to have some recruiters, so you need to hire recruiters to recruit your people, and you need to have some kind of employer brand in order to attract the right people. You obviously need to have some HR capabilities in order to have people paid on time, to have that contract, the basic. But if you don't have that, that becomes a little bit of a problem. You need to think about the organization structure. Which teams do we have? Do we need a customer service team? Does that belong to the sales team or the operations team or whatsoever? And the more people and teams you have, the more managers you need. And the more managers you have, you will need also more executive. And the more executive you have, the more you will be required to rethink, the role of the founder. At the beginning, as a founder, you're kind of touching everything, but little by little, you need to let go and to give it to others. So you can probably feel already the level of anxiety, going higher. And you're right. That's basically how founders feel when they reach hypergrowth phase. So getting into an entrepreneurship journey is very much the same as getting yourself in a race. You need to prepare for that. You don't just improvise it. And entrepreneurship is not any race. It's probably more likely to be a triathlon or a pentathlon, because you're not doing one thing, you're doing 5 and even more at the same time. So what you need to know is that no matter if, indeed some companies, all companies will not necessarily grow at the exact same stage, at the exact same time. They will all have different challenges and different cultures. But there are a number of things that are recurrent, that are, that follows the same trend. And so the nature of your business, of your company, the way it grows as you scale will, be likely to be the same as with other companies. Your role as well as a founder is going to evolve. What is required of you at the beginning will not be the same as what was required of you when you have a company of 50, 100, or 1,000 people. And so, as I said, it's not something that you just figure out as you go. It might be possible at the beginning, but as things accelerate, you just can't just change the wheels of the car once you're full speed and you wish you had an F1. It's a little bit too late. So you need to start building before that. So in order to plan, let's first have a look at what is the reality of growing a startup. What is the path ahead? So we can have a better idea of what that means. Basically, growing a startup is pretty much the same as growing a kid. First, because your startup is your baby and you really want it to work. You will probably feel the same frustrations as having a kid. I'm a mother myself, I know, but it can be quite frustrating. And hopefully you will get the same pride as well. But basically, managing a company of 10 people is very different to managing a company of 100, or let alone a company of 1,000 people. And it's exactly the same. It's not the same to be, to raise a baby of 2 years old than a kid of 12 or a young adult of 18. So things do change over time, and there are roughly 5 different stages of growth of a startup. The first stage, which I call the age of innocence, is between 0 and 30 employees. And basically, that phase will always be reminded as the good old times. Everything goes well. Everybody knows everyone. Everybody is involved in all the decisions. You have a question, you just go to the founder and ask them directly. There's a high level of energy, of excitement. Everybody is really into it and understanding what the challenges are and what we are here to do. But as you go above 30 employees and even 50, 75, things start to be slightly more complicated because people tend to feel a bit more remote from the founders. There are a number of questions that they do not get answers to, whether that's early joiners that want to know how they will grow into the organization, or new joiners who do not have the context around what's happening in the organization, because the founder is not necessarily here to tell everyone what's happening and why which decision is being made. There are a lot of new people being hired. It's not necessarily very clear which team is doing what, some employees do not even know which team they belong to or which manager they report to. So there can be a lot of unclarity. And when you get into 75 and above, that becomes even more complex because as a founder, you can't scale yourself, so you can't be the one to actually tell everyone what to do. And that's pretty much, what you feel as an adolescent. There's only as much as you can tell them to do. In an organization of 200 people, you're not going to tell everyone what to do. You need to trust that you have done a fair job before for them to understand how the organization functions, what they're here for, and who to speak to for which question. And that's what happens with adolescents, right? If you haven't done a good job before, then it's going to be very difficult to tell them to to eat healthy or to go to bed at the right time or whatsoever. They won't listen to you. They will just laugh or start their back to you. So what happens in the next phases is very dependent on how well you've done in the previous ones. And so in order to do well, to prepare well for the next phases, there are a number of things that you need to put in place at each phase. And sometimes you don't really necessarily feel the need for it. As I said, at the age of innocence, between 0 and 30, everything happens quite smoothly. And it doesn't feel like we need to put much structure, or at least to clarify a few points. But as I said, if you wait until you feel the pain, it becomes much more difficult. If you're not going to wait until you had 200 people in the organization to say, wait, we didn't really speak about our mission or vision, or we actually didn't really speak about our values, and now we have some weird behaviors in the organization. How can we address it? So it's very important that you address each thing on time and be aware on what are the difficulties they will face in the next phase if you don't address it at that time. In terms of the things that you have to be preparing for as well is your own growth as a founder. Because the reality is, you don't know what you don't know. You're probably doing this for the first time. Even if you're not doing this, if you're a serial entrepreneur, you're doing this company for the first time with this co-founder, with this industry or whatsoever. And if you're new to the professional world, or if you're coming from a corporate, there are a number of things that you have never done before. And so you will have to figure out all this. And you will have to figure that very quickly, because your role will, and what is the organization is expecting from you at different stage is different, and you will need to provide that for them to know. The same way that the kids require some information, some knowledge, having some questions answered from their parents. You are here as a parent, and you need to provide those, answer those questions to them. Nobody can do it but you. There are basically 3 stages of growth for a founder. The first one is somehow the easiest one for a number of people, not necessarily the easiest, but the most comforting. It's the jack of all trades. Basically, you're doing everything. You probably have 15 different hats on your head. You're the sales guys, you're the admin guy, you're the marketing guy, you're doing all the different roles. And you're extremely hands-on. So you're the first usually to see the problems, you're resolving them, you're hiring the people, you're doing it all. And that requires a certain level of satisfaction, because you're actually you're really into the action. But the thing is that after a certain size of the organization, you need to become a manager. You need to hire people who are better than you at some of the roles that you're taking. You can't possibly be good at every single roles that you're taking. You can't be a good recruiter plus a good marketer plus a good salesperson plus a good admin plus whatever. So you will hire people who are better than you to do that. And for them to do a good job, they need a manager. And so you need to take that role. But the thing is, to be a good manager means to let go of the control, to provide support, but to let people, to empower people to make decisions, to learn from their mistakes, and to solve issues by themselves and escalate if they need more of that. And so that can be very frustrating, because one, your startup is your baby. Second, you were very used to being in control, to see what needs to be done. You feel that if you were to do it, it would go so much quicker. So you have this frustration of not being in control anymore. And also you feel that you're not doing as much as you used to. So you need to reinvent your role to understand that actually where you're needed is not the same place. And that takes quite some time to transition into this new role. And the terrible thing is, once you feel comfortable in this new role, it's usually the time when you need to move to that last role, which is to being a leader. At that point of the organization, having grown significantly, where you have placed managers for the teams below, what is required of you at this point is to be a leader. And you're not needed at the operational level anymore. You're not involved in the execution, or you should not, because if you do, then you become the bottleneck of the organization. Not everything can wait for your green light to happen. So all of a sudden, what is required of you is to actually build the organization, ensure that you have the right people at the right role, and to provide the direction, the context, the inspiration. And that again is very, frustrating, because you feel that you're very removed from the operations, from the action, and you're pretty lonely at the top of the pyramid. So all this is complicated and needs to happen. And so in order for this to work well, you need to surround yourself with a supporting team, with people that can really help you transition and grow into your, through your entrepreneurship journey. Who are those people? Well, they are fellow founders. This group is a good group to have a look at. You can exchange, you can learn from their mistake. You can also speak up. Being a founder is very lonely. You have pressure from the inside, from the outside, and you might not feel that there's a lot of people that you can speak to. So fellow founders could be good people to speak to and to learn from. Of course, trying to get as many advisors or consultants that can help you, especially where you do not have the competences. Investors, choosing the right investors is important as well, because they can bring a lot of support beside the money. Money is only one part of it. There can be a lot paid as well, so make sure that you're choosing the right ones that can support you. You can choose to have an executive coach as well, so they can help you in that transition. They can help you identify what are the skills that you need to acquire that you're not necessarily seeing. We obviously all have blind spots, and so coaches can help you identify those blind spots and being able to grow them. And obviously, loved ones. They are very important. They're suffering a lot from our journey. And it's important for us to spend time with them so that they are reassured, but also so that we have time to also reset and be stronger for the journey. So, to sum up all this, to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to plan your journey ahead. And that's basically what people strategy is all about. I mean, a lot of what we've said is that it's not just about the product, etc. And even the product is dependent on how good the product team is and how good the product strategy is, and therefore who the person is developing the product strategy. So having a strategy on the people and the organization is extremely key. A strategy is basically having a plan of action, right? It's ensuring that we know how to make things happen. And so the best thing to use, the best tool to have in order to be able to plan this journey ahead and ensure that you're building the right organization, the right vehicle in order to go through your journey, is an organization roadmap. The same way that you have a product roadmap, you need a roadmap to build your organization and get your people in place. And so basically that looks like something like that, where along the way you add the different things that you need to do, and you will add some key timelines. So when I reach 30 employees, I need to make sure that I have already articulated my mission, my vision, my values, that when I reach 30, I need to start working about getting an HR team in place so that we can ensure that we have the right contract, we're compliant, and we need to be able to hire the right people, etc., etc. Once you have that, you can really relax much more and be able to face all the other challenges that will come your way. I mean, there will be a lot of unplanned and unexpected challenges that will come in your way. So at least if you can prepare and plan for those that we can plan for, that we know will be happening, then that will give you a lot more peace of mind. So, to sum up, what are the key takeaways? Getting into entrepreneurship is not any type of race. It's a pentathlon, or even more. So you need to prepare. You need to prepare like any athlete would do. So study the path ahead. Have a look at the different phases that your company will have to go through and what is needed, what will be the challenges associated at each phase, and what you will need to be doing in order to ensure that it's in place before it actually really endanger your momentum and your growth. Build a strong supporting team. You can't do that alone. So the supporting team is the one that I spoke about, with the external, but also with the internal people. Make sure that you hire the right people in the right roles at the right time that can really, take on some of your burden so that you can really move on and focus on the strategic stuff. And finally, set up your organization bookmap so that you can do that consciously and not in a hurry or in panic when all of a sudden you can feel that people are either leaving, being unhappy, disengaged, or whatsoever. That's it for me for now. I hope that was helpful. As mentioned earlier, so I wrote a book that is called From Zero to 1000. Everything that I said here is detailed in much more details in terms of the different stages of growth and the how to build the organization, whether that's the company culture, the HR team, the performance management framework, etc. So feel free to have a look if you're interested in the subject. And you can also reach out to me. So I put my contact details here, but you can also find me on LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone. So I'll take some questions here, if you have.
Yeah, of course. So very thank you so much for your insightful sharings, and we appreciate how much influence you are with our audience, because we have received lots of questions. Yeah, absolutely lots of questions. But here I'm gonna read the first questions for you. So you have mentioned already before the importance of building a very strong supporting team, right? So could you give us some tips or advice, and what are factors that we need to consider while we're doing that?
So as I said, the supporting team is quite various. So let me speak in terms of both the outside and the inside. The outside is going to help you grow as a founder, because as I said, you don't know what you don't know. You can't be possibly good at 15 different roles at the same time. It's not possible. Yeah. So very early stage, you will need some help from other people that did it to be able to identify quick wins, or I don't know, you're looking for a CRM system. Well, you're not going to go through all the hundreds of thousands of different tools to go and ask other founders what they're using. You're going to save a lot of time. Within the hour, you already are going to get a good list of useful tools. And you need people to be able to express your anxiety, your stress, your all the different things, to bounce back ideas. There are sometimes we, especially when we are heading down entering, we tend to forget and not see a number of things that are probably obvious to other people. So make sure that you're really finding people that you can trust and with whom you can be honest and share openly. And that you trust to be giving you sensible advice. It doesn't mean that you have to follow them, but it's good to listen to them, to at least have different perspectives. So that's for the outside. For the inside, building, having the right team is absolutely critical to build the right organization, because without people, you can't deliver the business plan. It's just as simple as that. Unless your business plan is very tiny and can be delivered just by you, why not? But it's a solopreneur type of journey. It's quite different. But if you're planning to scale a company, you need to find the right people on your side. And so hiring and investing into hiring very early stage is important. Not just hiring any type, it's also who are the people that will thrive and that will be good, evolving good in my company, in my culture, not just the skills. Do not buy, hire just skills. You hire culture, you hire values, you hire potential, and that's what you should be looking for.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very insightful answers. We need a very strong team to support us not inside the company but also for our outside. We need to prepare for some unacceptable happens, right? So very thank you for your answers in this first questions. And now we're gonna move on the next questions. So here's the questions from our audience, very interesting questions. So we are yet unprofitable entrepreneur forward education purpose. So what should we focus on making it be possible?
Well, I would need more information in terms of which stage you're at, and well, already well done for being profitable. We've heard a lot of stories of even big companies, big scaled up, so we're not profitable yet. So well done to you. That probably removes a lot of the pressure from the outside. So that's good. So well done to you. How, I'm not sure I got the question, but it's basically what are the next steps for us? Is it it?
They are the first stage of their development.
So
yeah.
So from zero to the early stage. So what is important here is to define who you are. Again, you might not feel that it's necessary at this point, but very early stage, you need to nail down. So very early stage, I say, within the first year, so when you're closing, you're between 6 months and 1 year of existence, you need to to really look seriously at defining your mission and vision. These things are really important. It's not just to look good for the external. It's not a branding exercise. It's an alignment exercise. So it's something that needs to be defined with the co-founding team or the larger executive team in order to make sure that we are very clear in terms of what we are doing right now. What is it that we do? Who are we doing it for? How are we doing it? What is in? What is out? What are the things that we may add into our business lines in the future? And what are the things that we're not solving for? We're not touching. We're not planning on adding. This is your mission. And it needs to be very clear for everyone, because it's not when you have an opportunity that you need to discuss it. Otherwise, you end up having an opportunistic strategy, and that flows quite a bit. Just to give you an example, Yahoo is actually a good counter example here. So Yahoo had 23 mission statements in 21 years. That's a lot of change. And I think from the outside already, we could see, so I don't know, you're probably all very young, a bit older. So I remember, you could see that they were trying to figure out what they were doing, and they were basically running behind the giants, the Facebook or the Google of the world at that time to catch up. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work if you don't, if your mission is only just to follow the leader. It's not as strong as if you have a clear view of what you're doing and why you're doing it. The vision is the moonshot, the finishing line, and that's something that needs to be extremely inspiring, extremely challenging, and that describe what is the future state of the world or the ecosystem in which you are evolving, that you will help create, or that will be becoming true thanks to you. And a great example here is Microsoft. So Microsoft, I think it was in 81, so there was a lot. Oh, no, I think it was 81. I'm not sure. But Bill Gates at that time set up the vision as a computer on every desk and in every home. At that time, computers were the size of my living room. So it was not even something that people could envision, that you could have a desktop on, a laptop, a computer on a table. It was not possible. But that was a vision. It was like, okay, let's be crazy. And it was very well done. It's to me, it's one of my top favorite, because it's very visual, it's very clear that this is what we are aiming at. And everybody in the organization therefore understands that everything that we're doing is getting us one step closer to reaching our vision. And so they're one of the rare ones that actually achieved their vision. And that was not by lack of having a very challenging vision, because it was challenging. And they had to change their vision. So their vision statement is now different. So to sum up, this is to me the most important when you're early stage mission vision. Once you have a bit more years of experience, existence, like 1 to 2 years existence, and you already have 10, 20 employees, you can start working on the values. But the values, you need to have some experience working together and some input from people working with you to be able to tell you who you are and be honest with you, how they experience working with you. Values are not, again, it's not a branding exercise. It's about telling honestly the truth about what it's like working for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer, Ms. Anne. Because this questions is not quite a tangible questions, but I believe that your answers must cover all the aspects that it needs to know. So now moving on to the next questions. So how do you balance between providing an opportunity for members to grow versus hiring someone with great experience from outside? This kind of relation between members.
Yeah, so the potential, so two things will depend. It depends on your budget, obviously, and it depends on your needs. Usually, I would say the worst thing to do is to hire in panic. So basically, you haven't taken action of something that either because you didn't see it, or you thought it was unimportant, or you didn't have the budget for it, and you let it. You just let it, on the side, like we'll look at it later, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, we need to get things done, and it becomes so important that you need somebody very, quite senior to be able to bring that change. And so when you do that, then indeed you need somebody a bit more senior that can, bring change and build rapidly. The danger is that when you do that, they might have the skill, but it's not necessarily sure that they have the culture fit. And most importantly, they don't necessarily have the time to absorb and to really understand who you are and what would be a best fit for your organization. And in that case, it means that they will step in, they will see that, oh my God, there's a big mess around here that I need to solve. And they naturally copy paste whatever they've done somewhere else that might not necessarily be the best fit for your organization. So I think the most important is to get a sense of what you need. Very early stage, in any case, you need mostly generalists. So people that have a potential, that have the ability to move from one place to the other and to be able to cover a wider scope, and who can see the gap and just do it. As you get bigger, that's when you will have more specialists and more managers as well. So the more senior people are needed when you need to have strong managers or leaders in the organization, or when you need them to build strategies. But in any case, when you hire senior people, you need to be okay with the fact that you will need to delegate authority with that. I covered a little bit this in the transition from manager to leader as a founder. But a lot of founders struggle with that because they have this sense of control that they don't want to let go, and they still want to be involved in the operations, in the decisions, in the how-to. This is the problem they want to say, to solve it, and they might go directly to the person, 3 levels down and say, hey, can you just do that, and skip 2 managers on the top. Don't do that, because if you invest into somebody who is senior, who has skills, who hopefully is much better than you in the field that you hired them for, but that you don't give them the authority to make decisions and to design the strategy and to, try their own way, then either you're paying too much for what ultimately they will be doing, because they will end up executing what you keep telling them to do. So you're paying them way too much for that. And most probably they're going to leave. If they're good, they're going to think, well, I've been hired to drive the marketing strategy or whatever it is, but I don't have, my hands are tied. I mean, each time I suggest something or I want to do something, then you come and you tell me, no, I want you to go in that direction. So they will leave. So if you hire senior people, do that because you have a clear need for people to drive, to build a strategy, to build an organization, to build frameworks. Hire them not too late, so that they're not copy pasting from other models and really have time to think what is best for you, and ensure that they have a culture fit.
Yeah, great, really insightful answers. So no matter who you are going to hire, but you need to make sure that you need to let out your control and authority, right? Especially when you hire senior people. You need to let them go and then do the things that are better than you, right? So now we're going to move to the next questions, which is quite intriguing because it's related to one-person business. So many successful businesses started with just one person, like Jeff Bezos was one of them. Well, he's a successful icon. Plenty of these one-person's companies failed miserably when the business grows. Many times, business strategies are designed without considering the needs of the people and describing how they deliver and achieve business goals. What are the HR advice that you could provide for scaling up a one-person business?
Well, the first question is, are you willing to? So I'm going to take my example. I'm a one-person business, but I have 2 people working with me, but I'm roughly one person business. And a lot of people ask me, and even ready to invest, for me to develop some other stuff. But I just didn't want to become a CEO. It's just, I don't want that. I know it's not me. I don't like that. What I love doing is I'm a builder. I love building new things, building new systems, new methodologies. I love growing people. I love helping people. So I don't think I would be a good CEO. I think I would be miserable. And I would be miserable on top of that, because I don't think I would really enjoy that leadership role that I described to you. So how to do it? First, be clear about what it means to scale a business. If you loved it as being a solo business, are you sure that you're going to enjoy, and why are you doing it, right? Is it for, for the fame? Is it for the money? Is it, be clear about why you're doing it and whether that's worth what you're going to go through. Now, let's assume all this is good, and hopefully it is. It probably is for most people. Then the next thing is, it's not. So you in the question you mentioned, what can I expect, from HR? The reality is that until you get an HR team, and even actually when you have an HR team, that's still not, the responsibility, the people strategy responsibility lays with you, with the founders. it's your responsibility to ensure that you're hiring the right people, that you're equipping them, that you're caring for them enough so that they have this will, this motivation to keep going above and beyond, to really being passionate about what you're bringing them in terms of vision of the future. So that's important. And why I'm saying it's with you, because, well, first, at the very beginning, you don't have no HR. And even when you start hiring HR, they're usually only just admin or operation people. They don't develop strategies. And that strategy has to be in place before you reach 1,000 and you can hire a chief HR officer that will really be able to develop the strategy. Because it will be kind of too late. Your culture will be set. It's an adult. At 1,000, you have an adult, so you don't change an adult like that. So yeah, make sure that you understand what it means from the people perspective, and that you put that on your to-do. And that's why you are the one to do that roadmap, to ensure that you are putting this on the agenda at the right time.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing your own stories to clarify these answers for us. Thank you so much, and I'm very grateful for that. So now we're gonna move to the next questions, which is something related to startup venture. So some entrepreneurs started their business with a spouse, partners, siblings, even family members, as they are being conceived as an easily accessible manpower. However, most of the times, the family members show the excitement of a startup business without a clear idea of their role in this business. So in your opinion, what are the HR considerations to take note when family is involved in one startup venture?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I will actually extend the question to not just family members, but it could be co-founders. It could, it's all the people that you hire at the beginning, and basically what needs to happen is that you need to be extremely clear from the beginning with all the people that join you that one day might come that the business will not need them, or the business needs will outgrow them. And that there will be a difficult conversation to happen, but that's for the good of the business, and that's for the good of your relationship, and that's for the good of the individual as well. Let me give an example. And so I'm not speaking just about family members, but I think it's very, very similar. So you might relate to that. It often happens that you have friends that become co-founders of tech startups. It often happens, right? They studied together at university, and they're really cool friends, and one becomes the CEO, which is quite clear what he's doing or she's doing. One becomes the CTO, rather clear as well. And sometimes you have one that might be COO, or might be it's just doing the rest. And that's okay at the beginning, because there's a lot of gaps to fill. So whether that's this guy or the family or whatsoever, that's fine. But as the organization grows, and I've witnessed that several times, where these type of co-founders really struggle. Everybody in the organization actually knows that this person doesn't necessarily have a role. They're just filling up the gaps. They're wondering why they're still in the business. The other co-founders probably know that as well, but they don't want to have the conversation because it's complicated. And most probably, this co-founder is always also feeling uncomfortable, because it's never good to feel that you don't fit, or am I really useful, or what? So everybody's feeling that. But the reason, what happens, that nobody dares to speak the elephant in the room, because everybody knows nobody dares to speak about that because, yeah, but we're friends or we're family or whatsoever. And it's like it will hurt feelings and I don't want to, blah, 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 to get into that. So know that whether that's family or not family, friends or even not friends, this conversation will most probably happen one day or the other. So prepare for that upfront and start from the beginning. You say, okay, we're getting to business together, but one day we might have to split, or not necessarily split, but we will, the business may outgrow us. So, you know, the initial CTO, the person that develops the first product, is most probably not going to be the CTO of the organization when we have 500 engineers. It's very unlikely because it's impossible, almost impossible to grow so much, you know, all these skills that quickly. So at that point, you need to make that decision. You know, you need to have that conversation and say, hey, look, we actually need a much more senior CTO, a real professional for that function now. Two options: either that's the end of our partnership, and you know we want to make that well, or we hire a CTO and you go below and you learn from a mentor. You will be able to grow more. And so you have that conversation from the beginning so that when it happens, of course it will be painful, but everybody's prepared for that. And second question is just don't postpone. If you see that there's there's a gap between what you need and what the person is actually providing, don't wait. Because if you shy away from it, if you don't have the courage to speak to them, you're most probably going to make them even more miserable. Because there's nothing worse than being stuck in a role when you don't have an impact. You don't feel good, and your employability decreases. It's very hard to then find a job because you feel diminished, and also you don't have the career progression that would get you employed much better in another role. Did I lose you? Oh yeah, here you're back. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, I can understand the way you answered this. It's really fulfilled. Like, you cover all the things that as a founder you need to consider when you involve the family members into your startup. But I think that the most important point is that you need to be straight, and we talk to that family that you may not can be fit with the organization after the organization gets to another high position, right? So that's at the time that we need to hire a senior who have much more better experience than you. Yeah, that's the way that you set up your startup. So yeah, so really intriguing. Now we're gonna move to another question. So growing startups depend on flexible business culture. Entrepreneurs often view HR as a job form that threatens flexibility and innovation. How could one embrace HR